Hello, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and in this video we will be talking about Giuliani's Opus 51 number 2, Grazioso. And so this is such a nice piece. I love this little piece. Giuliani has the ability to pack so much music in such a small amount of space. It's like Tetris. He just gets it all in there. And so this piece, we'll talk all about it and many different things that you can keep in mind while learning this piece. And if you would like to download the sheet music to this, it's part of a big book of music that we put together for you. The book is 30 pieces. They're kind of at the easy-ish level, but that's somewhat relative, isn't it? So it's at the beginner to early intermediate level these pieces are, but there's a lot of music in there. Just like this piece, there's a lot to do with these relatively short pieces. The book has both tabs and notation for all 30 pieces, and if you'd like a notation only book without the tabs, then you can also get that as well. And it also has right-hand fingerings so that you are purely ready to get going with whichever piece you choose to play, like this one. If you'd like to, you can download that book at the link below, and then also I'll send you some study notes for this piece especially as well. So with that, let's get it on. So when we first open up a piece of music, it's a good idea to just defocus your eyes, step back a little bit, and see what jumps out at you. And so then you can go through the music, notice any big sections, notice some like we're in 6/8 time here. You can notice the key signature, all these different things. But before we even do that, for this particular piece, let's look up here at the top at just the information that we're given. So we have Mauro Giuliani. Who is he? He's one of our big guys. He's, Vienna, high society, very elegant guy, great composer, and he has the ability, like we said, to just really write some compact but really compelling music. And he also had really big pieces as well. He was one of the best players of the day. So this is the late classical period, early romantic period. You can think Beethoven was a contemporary of his. It's living at the same time. He was Italian. He was a virtuoso. Everybody loved him. He was good looking. He just had it all. So this is the second piece, second etude, which is just a study, is another word for it, in his Opus 51. This is a larger group of pieces that were written for students, and this is the second one in them. But just because he wrote it as a study doesn't mean it's not a real piece of music. And next we have this word over here, which is grazioso, and this is a really important word. This word, whenever we see a word up at the top like this, it's really important to actually understand what it means, because when we understand what it means, then that can inform how we go about learning the piece. And in this one especially, it is. Sometimes it just says a simple word like fast. And so that actually has more connotation to it as well. So what is grazioso specifically? Grazioso means graceful and elegant. And so what it does not mean is aggressive or punctuated, accented, abrupt, anything like this. It doesn't mean it's dirgy and pathos and, oh, my breaking heart. It's not any of that. Instead, it is graceful, it's elegant gestures. And so whenever we're working through the piece, then that's what we're working for. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means that for our melody notes, we want them to be as smooth and connected as possible. Legato is the word for that. So we want to really connect our melody notes. We want to listen for any sort of clipped notes and get rid of them. And so we want everything to be really smooth and flowing. We want to keep our tone round and full and very pretty. So in other words, we're not going for scratchy, tinny sounds. Sometimes we do. It's an effect, and it's a wonderful effect if that's what we're going for. It's a particular flavor in the stew. Here, we just want the whole thing to be as graceful and beautiful and flowing as possible. And so whenever we're playing, that's what we're working toward, even from the very beginning. And you might be saying, well, that's all fine and great. I just want to get these notes because I'm not at a place where I can really indulge in the great study of phrasing and musicality and all this. I just want to play the tune. And that's great. Still, you can be aware of this and just lean into it just a little bit in your practice. And that's just going to make it sound that much better and will challenge you and That's how you'll actually get better and move towards these things, is just to be aware of them. Even if it's just 10% more graceful than you might have otherwise, it's worth noticing that that's what we're going for and then go for it. Okay, looking at these notes on the page. So we don't see any sort of roadmap signs, no repeat signs, no go back to the beginning and pat your head 3 times and then go to the special sign. There's none of that. It's just we play the thing straight through from the top to the bottom. And that doesn't mean that there's no repeated material, because we do actually at the very end, this little end bit right here, we do repeat the beginning we nod to the beginning as an outro. All right, also, if you defocus your eyes and look at this a bit, you'll notice that some parts look different than other parts. For instance, here we're starting with, there's this line that comes up and down and going around, and that goes on, and then there's some bass notes underneath it, right? So we're just noticing, we're not looking at the individual notes, but that goes on and that goes on. Well, here's something different down here, and here we get into this double thing to where we have this kind of shape going on. Well, that's interesting. So that's a different thing. Well, and then we have something even different than that, which is these little bass figures going on down here, these bass things in a build. And then we come back, it looks like, to the original stuff with our flowing line again. So different sections, and as it turns out, these are the different sections of this piece. And you can gather that just by looking at it, just looking at the texture and seeing what the notes do, what the shapes are on the page, what jumps out at you. So it's good to do that. Of course, this is just cursory information. We're just getting started here. Well, let's zoom into the first couple of lines here and talk more about 6/8 time. What is 6/8 time? That means 6/8 notes per measure. And a measure is the bar line. You might already know that. That's okay. So then there are 6/8 notes within this. In 6/8, we feel it in 2. And you can see that through these bass notes. The dotted quarter gets the beat in these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's different than 3, 4, which is 1 and 2 and 3 big beats per measure. This is 2 big beats per measure, each having 3 notes in it. So 1, 2, 3. It's like a jig. All right. Now we have one of the most important features of this entire piece. And you'll see this in many pieces. And if you know how to treat it, it'll make your practice so much more enjoyable and everything you play in that piece so much more beautiful. And that is this right here. These are called pickup notes, with this little fraction of a bar in the very beginning. So we have these 2 notes, then we start into our 6 notes. So it's a little partial bar. What does that mean? Well, that tells us the feel of the song, and that tells us how the melody is going to work within the larger rhythm of the piece. So with this piece, the melody starts with these pickup notes. We go to there, and then we start again. And then we continue going. So we don't just have it at the very beginning. Instead, you'll see this throughout the entire piece. So when you're making your small sections for practice, because you always want to practice in bits and then link your bits together. When you're practicing in bits, keep this in mind. So your sections, when you're practicing your small sections, do not end at bar lines, because it's not going to sound musical. And they don't anyway. So listen to this. Now that stops at a bar line and it doesn't actually go anywhere. So whenever you're practicing, you can always go over the bar line, 99% of the time always, and that's going to make it sound more musical, and it's just going to be more satisfying to play anyway, like this. Well, that actually gets us somewhere. And so now your music has direction, it has forward momentum, and is actually arriving at an arrival point. So don't stop at bar lines. That's the bottom line of that. However, with this, now that we see these pickup notes, we can extend it just a little bit more into the section. So then this becomes our section, which is just a few notes more. And so now we're to here. And so that can be your first small section. So then your 2 bars is 2 bars minus the pickup note. And your ear can tell you this as well. And then we go to here, and then we have our pickup note again. And then we have, yes? And we can fast forward this up to this point right here, and just notice that if we just look at this, in the melody, we have this long note, this big dotted half note right here. And so then we can see that this is going to be the end of a section. And if we listen to it, then it is. So if we start here, then we have our second section. Boom, boom, boom. And then we get into something different, right? All right. So that's one of the things to carry throughout your entire practice is be aware of the pickup notes and how that works with each of the individual phrases. All right, well, let's start talking about the hands a little bit. How are you going to actually learn this piece? So as we said earlier, first things first, small section. So don't just plow through the entire thing a whole bunch of times. Instead, take a small section and take a look at it. We're going to start at the beginning doing this, but you don't have to. You could actually start at the very end and do the last little section or some spot in the middle that looks hard to you. You could start with the hard section, and that way you would have more time on it than the other sections. But for now, we're going to take our first section that we talked about, which goes to here. And so this is our first little bit, our first 2-bar bit. And so as we're playing through here, what you're going to find is that you have some stretches between the third and the fourth finger. Here, you're going to, because we have this moving bass line and the fingers moving on top, there's going to be some pretzel-y spots within here. So we want to make sure that the music doesn't sound like it's hard. And instead, we want to get it in our ear, what it actually, the end result. And so we're going to start just playing that upper line. And this is the note, the stems up notes in this case. So we have just that, and just play it a couple times and make it as graceful and elegant as you possibly can. This work that you do just on the melody, it seems like it's too easy to be actually productive, but it is some of the most productive practice you can do because you're getting it in your ear that way. And then your physiology and your neurology can work towards putting that when you're playing it all together. If you don't have it in your ear how you want it, it's not going to happen. Even if you get all the notes and everything and your fingers can technically do it, it's still not going to have that greatness that it can have when it's just by itself. It probably won't be as good as when it's by itself, but it'll be better. So then listening to the connection of each note, the rhythm, the phrasing, so the getting louder, getting softer. We're not going to go super into the note-by-note phrasing in this piece, but as a general rule, I don't like to accent the high note. So if I see this note right here, this is a high note. A high note's just this is a high note. It's the notes that's higher than the notes around it, and this is a high note. So I don't like to accent those. Instead, unless it's like a big moment of a piece, but it's just this running work, this kind of stuff, then I try not to let those notes pop out. So it's not. And so, which the guitar can easily do that. It can easily play like that because those high notes speak so much more easily than the low notes. If you're playing with the same amount of finger strength or the same force, those high notes are going to pop out. So instead, you have to pull them back. Now, we also have the issue that this is actually the downbeat, right? And it's the big downbeat of the thing. So we actually do need to bring emphasis to it because we have the pulse of the piece to consider. But we still don't have to nail it. You have a bass note underneath it. With that bass note coming in, then you're going to know that it's the downbeat. You're not going to think that the tune starts with the first note or that the meter starts with the first note. So it's something to think about. I like to get louder going down and back off of the crest of the lines. So as it goes up, those last couple notes, back off of those, and that'll just, and then tumble back down. But all of that aside, all of the phrasing rules and don't accent this note and bring out this note and don't do this, you can put all that aside because at an even more fundamental level, volume is about rolls. So we just need to know this is the melody, this is the bass, this is not the melody, this is some other notes that are the accompaniment. Really, that's an even more important function of volume and how we use volume in our pieces. So even if the particular curves or whatever, we really just need to know this is the melody, this is not the melody. So as long as you keep that in mind, you'll be good to go. All the other stuff can come as you have time and inclination to play with it. That said, if you want to play with it, playing just the melody by itself and then really phrasing note by note like this and seeing what do you think? How does it sound when you go louder right here or softer right here? Play around with it without the complexity of all the different bass notes and all the different voices. This piece is in the key of C, and there is a lot of C chord. And we do a lot of this like the third note of this song. We have the third finger down here on the fifth string and the pinky is up here on the first string. And that makes for a little bit of a stretch. If you try to keep an absolutely perpendicular hand while you're playing two notes on the same fret, especially with a gap like this, then it's going to, this third finger is going to then move back a little bit, and so it might buzz. You're going to need to tilt your hand just a little bit. Here's the punchline. Tilt your hand just a little bit, and it's okay to do that. Same thing with the big full hand chord like this in the key of C. If your thumb wants to come up just a little bit higher than textbook perfect, then that's okay, because it can be much more comfortable in your hand if your thumb comes up just a little bit. That way you don't have to do this type of thing and bring out your wrist, because we don't want extreme angles in the wrist. And so just choke up a little bit into your hand. It's okay if this finger curves. It's okay if you're doing this and this finger comes a little bit back like this. It's not ideal to do this all the time, but needs must. And you don't have to do it, but it just might a little bit, and that's okay. Okay, I just pulled up these right hand fingerings because we've been looking at it without the right hand fingerings just so that it's a cleaner slate to look at. Instead though, if you want to play this song fluently and really gracefully, like Grazioso, like we're going to do, these elegant gestures, these right hands are pretty important because it's a little bit thorny if you just thwack at it. You're going to have a lot of repeated fingers. You're going to have a lot of weird string crossings. Instead, this fingering is a good one. I worked out this fingering specifically and went note by note and figured out what I think is the best fingering for this. And so I recommend you actually use these right hand fingerings. And it's gonna be weird some spots, but it works. And other ones would be even more weird, even if this doesn't feel completely like you would have chosen at first. There's a reason for each and every one of these right hand fingerings. And so I encourage you to use it. It keeps it so that you don't repeat fingers, because at this speed is not the issue here. We're going more for smooth and connected. We're going more for the elegant gesture. Speed is not an issue, but it does need to have forward momentum. We can't make a dirge out of it. So if you want to get this thing up to speed, up to a nice moderato speed, you're going to need to have each finger playing once, so not repeating fingers, and ideally your string crossings to not be one finger jumping over the next. So these fingerings will work for you. Next, in service of the graceful line, we want these bass notes to be as lovely as possible and as ringing as possible so that they are also smooth and connected. So just play them. It just takes once, just so that you listen to it and you just notice bass on its own terms, as if that's your part and that's the only one that you have to play. Just play it once or twice, listen to it, make it smooth and connected, make it beautiful, as if that's all it was. So moving down a line, now we come to measure 9, and this is great. So getting into measure 9 here. A new note. New notes, new texture. Take your time and work these out. Play the parts separately, play them together. And then just notice the fingerings and listen to the connection. Again, make it really nice. So just let this be a study in voicing Notice here that we have, this is a long note right here. So it's going to connect with this note. It's not just single, we're not just going to bludgeon every single note out just like they're all the same. Instead, we do still have a melody and a bass. It's just that the bass is more active now. So then as we do this, keep that quiet. Exaggerate it in your practice. Really quiet. And again, we have our pickup notes, or telling us where the phrase stops, right? Where the bit stops. And then we have the next one. Again, quiet. And then again. And then we go on. So take it slow through here. Take as much time as you need with it. You've got all the time in the world. Even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment, you actually do. And when you practice that way, then you actually learn it faster and better. So take your time and just really make it nice. Listen to it. These are funny little sections with the fingerings because they're like little brain teasers. They really make sense once you start looking at them. But until then it just seems like weird fingerings. One of the things that can help is if you look at the parts in isolation here, you have these, like let's look at this bass line right here. From here going down to here and up here. This is our bass line for this section right here. So let's just look at this. We have this line going down first, a little scale across the bar line, just like we practiced, right? So it's just it's a D minor. And then we have these chord tones, so D, F, and A, which is the D minor notes. So if you know the music theory behind it, you can look at it and say, oh, okay, I get it now. We're just going down this natural D minor, and then we're playing the 1, 3, 5 of the chord. If you don't know that, it's perfectly fine. And you can just notice what you notice, which is we have a scale going down, so like note by note, stepwise, that's what it's called. And then we have some skips. And you can just look and we have skips going up for the second half of that through here. So just at whatever level that you are, notice what's going on. Even if you don't have a particular name for it, or you don't know why those notes are chosen, still notice that these patterns are happening. Same thing here, scale going down, and then we have C, E, and G for this bit, which is a C chord. Is part of that C chord. This whole measure is just a C chord. So notice what you're noticing. And you can do the exact same for the upper line in this section as well. So there is a pattern, so just take a look and you'll see it. So now we're at measure 13, getting into measure 13. A new note again. It's like such great harmonies here. This is the tension section. And just to point this out, because this is really fun, up to this point, we've had 4-bar phrases, right? If you look at it, each line has been 4 measures, and in the sound, it's 4 measures. Here, we get into this big 6-measure bit. We have 5 measures in this line and then an extra one here. And so now we have a 6-measure section, and then at the end, we have our 4 again. So it's really cool that he did this. It extends it out, and if you listen to it, suspense, and then we're back and we resolve it in with the first thing. So this is the big moment, is this section. And so as you're doing this, you're naturally going to want to build. If you just listen to it, it's naturally going to want to get louder. Here's the key with getting louder. The first thing you want to do, if you ever want to get louder, the first thing to do is to get quieter, because that enables you to then get louder and make a statement with the getting louder. Otherwise, if you start, then the only way to get louder is to start shouting, and you don't want that. What you want is the contrast. That's what makes loud feel loud, is the contrast with soft. So first off, if you want to get loud, the first thing to do is to get quiet. So with this, just keep aware of that. So with that as a guiding idea for this entire section right here, as you're going through here, we have a pattern, right? We have a note, and then we have our pickup notes again, and 3 more notes. And then we start again. So we have these first 2 measures, and then we have the next 4. Here's the thing. With these repeated notes, they're going to sound best. Repeated notes in general. If you have 3 or more repeated notes, usually it's going to sound great if you start them quiet and get them louder so that they're just not static. You know, it's just not a stuck note that just like it just got stuck on repeat. Instead, it's actually it's a surge. Da, dum, dum. Really. And the quieter you start the first one, the more you can grow with them. Now, through this, I would do that throughout this entire thing and think about that it is kind of a scale thing. So the final loudness of the last repeated note, it's going to be less for this one, and then it's going to get slightly more to this one, and then more to this one, and then it's going to get quiet, and then this whole section here is just going to get louder. Because on the top we have our big repeated note G here, right? So this is a big repeated note section. It's just that is building the tension here. So we have our G. So start the first one. Not so loud. Don't let that first one bang, because then you'll have some place to go. More. Ah. And then we're back to the beginning and we're nice and elegant again. So we just had this moment of, we don't want to get too crazy because we still need to be grazioso, right? But in practice we can exaggerate this, and then we can know how to bring it down into the tasteful mood that is the piece. So we do have, even though this is graceful, this is elegant, there is tension still. There is tension, there is release. It's not wallpaper, in other words. It's not just it's just not the mundane landscape hanging on the wall. It is actually a beautiful thing that has its dark sections and its light sections. So with that, you can really bring out the musicality of it by working the repeated notes. And the last thing I'll say about this section here is the use of the way that he has used rests versus long notes. So here we have rests on the bottom, right? Same thing here, rest, rest, rest. On the top, however, we have long notes. These are long notes. These are long notes. These are long notes. And these are long notes. And so take heed of that. It doesn't always, sometimes it's just easier for the guitar writing to not have the rest, or to put the rest, even though you don't really have to play a rest. Here, I would actually play these rests. Cut the sound. Cut the sound. Right, but here, high note. Da, So cut the sound and make sure that those top notes are actually ringing out and connecting. And for the very ending, here are our pickup notes again is our section. You can do a little bit of a slowdown at the end if you would like to, but in general, through this piece, you don't want to do a whole lot of slowing down and speeding up. It's not that type of piece. Instead, keep the thing flowing at a nice, gentle forward movement. And then at the very end, if you want to sit it down nicely, then you can. Earlier I said we wanted to keep the sound, the tone of the guitar, the tone of the sound, very full and very sweet. And how do you actually do that? It's beyond the scope of this video to talk about right hand technique and how to do that. But if you play the lines separately like we talked about, if you slow down and listen, then you can notice. It could be that if you play obliquely to the strings at an angle here, then you'll get a richer sound. If you move from the big knuckle and push through, the string, instead of pulling up on the string like this, you'll get a richer sound. So push, pull. It's a much tinnier sound and a thinner sound if you pull up on the string. So there's a lot that goes into right hand technique. We talk a lot about it in my full program, but right now the main thing is just to listen and to take a few minutes and play with it. Like, would you like to play this piece over the whole more versus way back here? Just that little change alone can richen the sound of your guitar, make it sweeter sounding for this piece. So play with it and listen to it, and it could be that you do a little bit of filing on your nails. If you don't play with nails at all, that's perfectly fine. And it could be that if you have any nail, if you're playing without nails, make sure that they're all consistently short so that you don't have one that's kind of making a tinny sound because there's just a little bit of nail. The main key is to be aware of it, listen to what you're hearing, and if you can improve on it, then do. Well, again, if you would like the sheet music to this, and I hope that you do, I hope that you play this piece and that you work on it and study it, and it becomes just a wonderful part of your daily practice experience for a while, and that you get a lot out of it. It's both beautiful and it's lovely and fun to play and to hear for people around. So if you'd like to get the sheet music, you can find that at the link below, and you can get the tabs if that's your style, and the notation, or just a notation only version. And it's got the left hand fingerings, the right hand fingerings. And if you use the link below, you can also get some study tips for this particular piece as well. Some of the tips that we've talked about here. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this foray into Giuliani's Opus 51, number 2, Grazioso, the graceful and elegant study. And I hope that you enjoy it for months and years to come. All the best in your practice. See you soon.